Hello viewers and welcome to this week's episode of the program. This is the Gavel. I am Benny Ark. Recently, the tax reform bills has been a topic of discussion in the public space, with many Nigerians weighing in on the proposed changes. During the first plenary session of the week, the House of Representatives seemed to be having a routine session, but things took a turn when the spokesperson of the House mentioned the controversial tax reform bills. This led to a heated debate among the lawmakers. Now, the tax reform bills, which seeks to provide a fiscal framework and clear and concise legal framework for all taxes in the country, has been the subject of controversy. While some argue that it will help to reduce disputes in tax administration, others believe that it will place an undue burden on taxpayers. Let's take a look.
During the first plenary of the week in the House of Representatives, what seemed like an easygoing session suddenly turned rowdy when the spokesperson of the House, while moving for the consideration of a report, brings up the controversial tax reform bills.
I'm from Ekiti State, the very first state in which our National Assembly caucus has unanimously endorsed the tax bills. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of Honorable Boma Goodhead. Order, please.
The rowdy session was sustained despite the intervention of the Speaker and an apology from Honorable Rotimi.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to withdraw that introduction, sir. Honorable colleagues, I would like to withdraw that introduction and restrict it to the other paper. This has nothing to do with the tax bills. Please.
The lawmaker was compelled to step down the consideration of the report.
I seek the leave of the House and Mr. Speaker to step down because the presentation of this report until the next legislative day, Mr. Speaker.
But the aggrieved lawmakers were not done as they called for the resignation of the deputy spokesman of the House over a publication on the tax bills.
I woke up this morning to see an online publication from the deputy spokesman of the House. Read as the content, or the heading read as, the newspaper is Daily Trust. And it reads, those who oppose to tax reform bill now seeking speedy passage. This should be produced, or we are calling for his resigning from the spokesperson or deputy spokesperson of this House.
We will make sure that all your concerns with this publication is well noted by the House and the right action will be taken.
Meanwhile, in the Senate, as lawmakers resumed on the second day of plenary, the subject of the president's tax reform bills was once again brought up.
In the entire world,
the Deputy President of the Senate, Barau Jibrin, made an announcement to hold further deliberations on the controversial tax bills.
that has been agreed by the executive and also by us, that there should be a forum that will sit with the judiciary so that we can sit down and sort out all these problems. It's on this note that the Committee on Finance that has been that the bills have been referred to should halt action on public hearing and other issues until we resolve these issues.
A 10-man committee was then set up by the Senate to interface with the Attorney General of the Federation 24 hours after President Bola Tinubu gave the directive for the minister to engage stakeholders, including the National Assembly, to address concerns that have trailed the bills. The following day, the conversation about the controversial tax reform bills raged on,
that we suspended,
as the Senate leader raised a point of order on the issue and described as untrue media reports indicating that the Senate has withdrawn the tax bills.
Nowhere in our votes and proceedings was it stated that we suspended further deliberations on the tax reform bill, because we did not. And I felt it would be important to place on record that this Senate did not suspend. As far as we are concerned, the tax reform bills are alive. Because like I said, there are executive bills that can only be withdrawn by the executive.
The Senate will not be bullied. We are doing our work in the interest of Nigerians. And by the time we come up with our final position, it will reflect the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. And not only that, any reform that we can make, painful as the reform may be, so long as this Senate is convinced that it is in the interest of Nigerians, we will go ahead with it with a view to bringing our economy on a forward march.
The upper chamber of the National Assembly reconvened on Wednesday for its first plenary session after a break, with a key focus on the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. This framework is expected to provide a clear direction for the country's economic policies and programs over the next years. Here is how it went.
Lawmakers in the upper chamber reconvened on Wednesday for plenary with the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper on the front burner.
The framework projects an ambitious infrastructure development agenda focusing on energy and transport to stimulate productivity and industrial growth. The government is committed to prudent borrowing and investments that promote long-term economic resilience. New borrowing stood at 9.22 trillion, which constitute both domestic and foreign borrowings.
The lawmakers engaged in an in-depth debate examining the implications for Nigeria's fiscal policies in the next 3 years.
Production is going on, yet the prices are not coming down. Dangote is on flow. Port Harcourt is on flow. By today, we need to see these petroleum prices coming down, if we are honest with ourselves. And while we don't see it coming down, then it is the work of the National Assembly to ask questions, raise questions, so that we get the answers straight.
We should be cautious in our optimism, and that both committees and other relevant committees be on the alert, so that by at least the first quarter of next year, we can sit down, appraise the general economic climate, and where necessary, cause a review.
Other lawmakers were less impressed with some of the details contained in the document.
If we are only 7% of the Nigerian population and consuming 85% of the Nigerian resources and leaving 15% to the generality of Nigeria, I think something is wrong with our budget system, and I think it needs to be corrected.
The Committee on Banking and Currency should look at this ways and means. So far, Central Bank has charged over 6 trillion on the interest on securitized instrument with debt management. The records are there.
The adopted recommendations include a resolve to investigate the NNPC Limited over a 8.4 trillion naira allegedly withheld as expenditure on petroleum subsidies.
Those in support that the entirety of the MTF MSP as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Meanwhile, an intense debate ensued in the upper chamber when the chairman of the Committee on Power, saddled with the task of investigating the frequent collapse of the national grid, submitted his report for consideration.
For any time that we have a shutdown occasioned by a grid collapse, 3 plants in Nigeria that supply most of our electricity needs, the one in Azura, the one in Delta State, and the one in Shiroro, to restart the plants cost Nigeria $25 million.
Many of us, very soon when we go back to the electorate, they are going to tell us that for 1 year, for 2 years, they've had no light. What is the problem? No transformer. And then they say, NEPA says you have to pay for them to connect. So if these ones are now being procured by state government using public fund and individuals using their personal resources, what is the cost that these discos are incurring?
The report, in my opinion, should have indicated further scrutiny of the spending of the Power Ministry in the last 2 decades.
The report was subsequently stepped down and the committee given 6 weeks to report back to the House.
We must be prepared to recommend necessary legislative actions. We have a right to revoke even in fact, we can repeal the various acts that made the federal government to commit these blunders. As far as I'm concerned, the Committee on Power should come back to us and also increase the scope of work from just the collapse of the grid to the non-functionality of the TCN and the discourse in the country. Those in support of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Meanwhile, Wednesday's plenary session in the House of Representatives witnessed a mild confusion when the House moved to consider two bills lumped as one. The bill sought to amend the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act to insulate judicial officers from prosecution before being lawfully removed from office and to enable public officers maintain foreign bank accounts outside Nigeria.
Considering the impediments or the difficulties the public officers face, particularly on the issue of school payments of school outside the country, and also the sickness. Because of the bottleneck we experience today, one is not allowed to maintain a foreign account.
The aspect seeking to allow public officers operate foreign bank accounts was largely condemned by lawmakers.
Our exchange rate is already having a problem, and this thing is done to present the kind of corruption and some people that take money out of the country. The major problem this country is having is capital flight, taking our money out of Nigeria. And this bill will rather encourage capital flight, and that will not be interest of all Nigerians.
There is a room for domiciliary account, which makes it easy for every Nigerian to keep foreign money and use it abroad. Well, if this is allowed, it makes room for people to indulge in corruption and tell them to go and pay abroad.
Honorable Solomon Bob, listed as one of the sponsors of the bill, instantly dissociates himself from that aspect of the bill.
My own is about insulating judicial officers, okay, from being arbitrarily removed from office, okay, without going through the required constitutional process. The other one dealing with foreign account is not my business.
It soon became clear that both bills were unrelated.
Chairman rules. I think there is an issue here. If you look at the two subject matters, they are not related. Why did we go for consolidation of these two bills when the subject matters are not related?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, with the volume of bills that we have at the moment, we have decided that bills that seek to amend one particular law, for in this case, the Code of Conduct, we bring all of them together for us to...
But I don't think if they are on the same subject matter. They are completely unrelated.
The bill was eventually stepped down and is to be separated into two bills. In the meantime, on Tuesday, the attention of the House was drawn to the increasing rate of boat mishaps across the country.
Concerned that if nothing is done to improve the safety and emergency response systems, Nigeria will continue to face psychological trauma, economic losses, and untimely deaths.
Outside the chambers, Nigeria's quest to transition from petrol to CNG is being impacted by a trade exchange and value initiative. The Deputy Chairman, Senate Committee on Trade and Investment, Olubiyi Fadeyi, who received a Chinese delegation, noted that the shared vision of Nigeria and China will enhance collaboration in industrialization, energy transition, food security, and infrastructure development.
Trade, investment, and value exchange initiative, which we believe will serve as a model for mutual beneficial partnership, starting with the pilot projects anchored in Osun State. I enjoy all of us to approach our discussion with openness, innovation, and a spirit of partnership. Together, we can unlock immense potential for our economic and people, laying the groundwork for a prosperous future.
The House of Representatives is seeking to amend the Public Procurement Act to address the menace of abandoned projects. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Unyime Idem, while addressing participants at a hearing on the bill, says the mischief that has plagued the public procurement space is the practice of contractors to delay projects unduly, intentionally, and without fear of sanctions.
This culture of project delays preceded the current problem of inflation and devaluation. Hence, it is a problem that we now must address from a legislative perspective. The instant problem impacts governance in Nigeria and has affected our ability to deliver the dividends of democracy to the Nigerian people.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Gavel. Earlier this week, the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, partnered with the House of Representatives Committee on Constitution Review to host a national dialogue on local government reforms and constitutional amendment. This event was a big deal, and here is why.
There are lots of issues surrounding conversations on local government autonomy in the country, and in recent weeks, in fact, in recent months, the country has been in that turmoil of conversation. And for everyone, it's a question, how do you get local governments to be able to deliver on citizens' expectations? The Supreme Court gave a recent ruling that emphasized the importance of local governments and emphasized the importance of holding democratically conducted elections into local governments. And across the country, there is a concern that local governments are not delivering. Elections into local governments have become a farce, and so you see that governors in their states decide that they want to conduct, in quotes, local government elections. Elections that are conducted do not produce candidates other than candidates or so-called winners from the ruling party. So the National Assembly is looking at the decision of the Supreme Court, but also looking at the practical realities of how do you get local governments to become much more effective, representative, because when you have local government elections conducted that are won elections by nominees of governors, then it doesn't reflect the representation that we're talking about. So PLAC supporting the National Assembly, particularly the Constitutional Review Committee, to organize a dialogue session on local government autonomy is a reflection of the concern that everyone has, that there has to be firm and clear constitutional provisions outlining and protecting the autonomy of local governments. And I think that if the conversation goes well, if the governors understand how their own credibility can be enhanced by well-conducted local government elections that is representative of the different interests in the state, then I think that would give local governments much more credibility. It would make them much more accountable. And there were suggestions made from the dialogue session that feed well into conversations going on in the Constitution Review Committee about how elections can be conducted that will be credible for local governments. It was good to see former state governors, some of whom are in the legislature now, with hindsight, talking about what needs to be done better. It was also good to see local government employees, unions, local government Algon, and several other key stakeholders talk about how you can get local governments to be much more effective, local government elections to be much more credible, and then be able to deliver to citizens expectations that they have about local governments in the country. I think that there would be challenges, but across the country, citizens are saying, we want local governments. We want local governments that are effective. And they don't want local governments that are teleguided and controlled and manipulated at the state level by the governors. And I think that when citizens build up that demand, it will be important for governors to understand that they have to respect what citizens want to do. And it was good to see some ex-governors talk about what they did in their own states to improve the quality of local government administration. And I think it's something that our current governors need to support so that we can see local governments begin to deliver. Some of the presentations even talked about zero-party representation, which means that elections are conducted at a zero-party level, at the local government level, such that you don't have to be a member of a political party to run or aspire to run a local government as chairman or even as a councillor. And I think some of the ideas that came up from that meeting recommend themselves for consideration by the Constitutional Review Committee. And let's not forget also that the State House of Assembly would also have to vote on this, and it will be important that all of these suggestions are presented for consideration.
Let's meet Honorable Luwale Oke, the representative of Obokun Oriade Federal Constituency of Osun State in the House of Representatives. He is a member of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and has been serving in this capacity since 2015.
My constituency is a constituency where people want to see what you have done in the areas of capacity building, human capital development. They are aware that I am not the local government chairman. I am not the governor of the state. I am not the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They are aware of my mandate, that my mandate rests squarely on Section 4 of the Constitution to make laws, right? But because we are the closer people, or let me say, the group of that is more with the people, with the grassroots. Because for an average person in my village, in my constituency, to see the governor, it's a very tall order. Not to now talk of him saying, Mr. At best, maybe on television, right? But on weekend basis, bi-weekly, monthly, you have to be with them. So I'm very close to them. So, and I know their needs. So their mindset is human capital development. Okay, we have sent our children to school. They have graduated. Can you help them to get employment? If you can't help them to get employment, can you help them, to be empowered? Skills acquisition. And of course, helping them to get seed capital with which they can start doing something for themselves. This is the major focus of my constituents. Aside that, they also want infrastructure. Even though when they know that is not the basis of electing me, because those ones are purely executive function. It's only on a wise lawmaker that will be competing with his local government chairman, with his governor, or with the president in the areas of, infrastructure, capital projects. At best, the window we have here is the opportunity given to us through constituency projects. And what can we do in that area? You begin to look at key sectors, particularly where in our constitution, items that are on concurrent list. For example, health. Yes, the local government, the state government can contribute to that sector. But the federal government can also intervene. Education. Both the two other arms of government can contribute, then the federal government can also intervene. And that is why we're able to build primary health care centers, renovation of hospitals, renovation of schools, or building of new schools. So that's the window which we use to intervene in those sectors. We also look at agriculture, right? It's also on concurrent list. It's not an exclusive list. So when you now come to roads, unfortunately for me, not all my roads are classified as grade A roads. That is federal roads. Most of the roads in my constituency are B and C. They are roads that belong to state and local government. I've raised the motions there for federal government intervention in those roads. The letter I got from Federal Ministry of Works was that those roads are not federal roads. So that is where I have limitation in the. But those roads that are federal roads in my constituency, you can see federal government intervention. For example, if you look at the roads that from Akure to Ilesha, it passes through after Igbaraoke. The next place you get is Oweno. So that road passes through the length of my constituency up to Ilesha, Iloko Junction. So you can see those roads are in good condition. because we were able to lobby and get the Federal Minister of Works to work on them. I've also been able to lobby FEMA, lobby Federal Minister of Works to also support me. For example, if you look at Etioni to Esauke, you see that the road has been fixed. Ordinarily, that road is a state road, but thank God we got federal government intervention. Now, in the current budget of 2024, there are internal roads in Ipetu-Ijesha that links to the road that goes to Ondo, So I've also been able to get some intervention in the budget, ditto in Ikeji, Arakeji, right? And then, of course, in Esauke too, I've also been able to get special intervention. Hopefully, in the 2024 budget, we'll be able to get government support to fix the roads. These roads are important because that is where the farmers can bring their farm produce to the cities.
That's it for this week's program. Your feedback is important, so email us at thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for watching. I am Benny Ark. Stay well and be safe.